Hello, my name is Patrick Mayo, and I'm an assistant professor of ophthalmology at the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine. My laboratory studies how the brain processes what we see and how that information is used to move the eyes in appropriate and adaptive ways. We focus our research on these fundamental aspects of vision because the vast majority of visual disorders not only affect how well we see, but how and where we move our eyes. Such visual disorders include glaucoma, also known as tunnel vision, strabismus, which is sometimes referred to as crossed eyes, and macular degeneration, a condition where the center part of our retinas with the highest acuity begins to degrade. These disorders affect tens of millions of Americans and lead to collective healthcare costs in the billions of dollars each year. What's more, the prevalence of these disorders is expected to increase in the coming years as population dynamics skew towards older age groups. This further increases the financial burden for both government and taxpayers. An overarching goal of my laboratory is to find new ways to diagnose and treat these visual disorders, lessening their financial impact and their impact on the quality of the lives of patients. Almost any disruption of vision in the eyes will also affect brain activity and how people see the world. In fact, although we tend to be unaware of our eye movements, we are continually scanning the world with our eyes. So much so that we actually make more eye movements per day than heartbeats. It is obvious that what we see critically depends on where we are looking, but there is also a constant interaction between what we see and where we will move our eyes to next, because what we're looking at now guides where our eyes might move to next. After we move our eyes, we see a new part of the world, or we see a new part of the world in more detail, and then the process repeats itself again and again, thousands of times per day. And each time the brain is making a decision about whether to move the eyes up, down, left, or right, or wherever, and whether to move the eyes slowly or quickly. This processing loop, which includes both perception and movements, is what I think of as vision. My laboratory doesn't focus on only the eyes or only the brain or eye muscles in isolation. Instead, we carefully design experiments to investigate the brain's mechanisms for these different components during natural visual behaviors, such as looking at something new in your visual periphery or following a moving dot across a computer screen, much like you'd track a fly with your eyes if you were trying to catch it. This experimental approach allows us to dissect the neural mechanisms of these different subprocesses by using a continuous measure of what the subject sees in the form of non-invasive eye movement recordings. We do these experiments in both humans and animals so that we can learn from recordings of brain circuitry and eye movements and apply that knowledge to human behavior and towards clinically viable treatments for visual deficits and eye movement disorders. Our overarching goal is to help provide the missing link between the eye and the brain, to understand how what we see is translated by the brain into perception and eye movements. So given our perspective on vision and our methods for studying visual function, let me give you one brief example of the kinds of questions that we seek to address. Although a main focus of our work is studying the visual motor processing loop in its unaffected state, we are also always trying to understand how the interaction of vision and eye movements changes in particular visual disorders. It is easy to imagine something like macular degeneration, where your central vision begins to degrade, having a profound impact on vision. The information that enters the eyes will be more blurry and less precise. But then how does this blurry information affect brain processing? Do subjects have a more difficult time planning where to move their eyes next? Are they slower to make these decisions because they are less certain about what they see? If so, then the pattern of eye movements observed in patients should be distinctly different from subject whose vision is unaffected. That would be a powerful insight because we can quickly and easily measure eye movement patterns, which could be used to help diagnose macular degeneration early on, and therefore begin treatment when it is most effective. Although we can certainly see if our eyes are still and motionless, it's not the way we go about our daily lives. What we really do during natural vision is move our eyes to points of interest, process that new visual item, and then move our eyes again to other points of interest in our visual world. My laboratory is dedicated to using this expanded understanding of everyday visual behavior to better treat a wide variety of visual disorders and develop new avenues for mitigating their effects.